Namaskar, hello and a very warm welcome to CIT NCERT's special live phone-in program on school leadership and development. This is by NCSL, that is National Center for School Leadership. And our today's topic is Perspective Planning for School Leadership Development by School Leadership Academies. This is not a normal program, this is a very special program, and let me tell you the focus of this particular program. This program is for school leadership academies that are established in 29 states or union territories for developing an understanding on how to create a perspective plan for the next 5 years. The session will be useful for SLA faculty, core group members, state resource group members, and school principals to collaboratively think, design and implement the school leadership program in their states and UTs. So you're watching us on PMeVIDYA channel number 6, channel number 9 and channel number 12, and also on our YouTube channel, which is NCERT Official. In the live chat box, all of you can write your questions and queries if you have any. So we'll be taking up your queries towards the end of this program, and we have got a lot of discussion to be in this particular program. Let's just introduce you to our today's expert. She is Dr. Charu Malik. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. So ma'am, as you all know, she is an assistant professor from NCSL NIPA, and let me tell you what NIPA exactly is. NIPA is the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration. Let's begin this discussion. We have a lot to discuss. My first question to ma'am would be, what is the need to plan for school leadership development in the futuristic perspective?
Yes. Thank you for inviting us for this special program on perspective planning for school leadership development. That is an exercise that has to be undertaken by all these school leadership academies. So as rightly asked, what is the need for planning for leadership development in the context of the national program that is running on school leadership development. So the idea of school leadership academy is can be traced back to 2015-16 when NCSL had decided to extend its arms into the states and UTs by way of establishing school leadership academies in the already existing government education institutions at the state level. This was done primarily with the purpose of institutionalizing the program so that the program is reaching out to every school and every child because a national level center cannot reach out to every school or every child. We need the help and collaboration of other partners. So the prime objective of School Leadership Academy has been to carry forward the activities and programs that have been conceptualized by the National Center for School Leadership, contextualize them in their own realities, and develop materials and content which are supplementary to the frameworks that are developed at the center. One of the key responsibilities of SLAs is also to build capacities of school leaders, and as we shall see today, extend their scope to other functionaries in the education system, such as the educational administrators and the academic cadre in the state. So this has been the prime responsibility of the SLAs, which are now established in 29 states and UTs. One of the other major functions is, of course, research and development, because NCSL has been committed to creating capacity building programs and school leadership preparation programs based on sound research and empirical evidences that are grounded in the realities of the school. So we have always kept that in mind. On one hand, what does research say about school leadership development? What are the empirical evidences, and what are the diversities and the contexts of the school across the platform? And based on the learnings that we have drawn from research and from the field, we have been consistently preparing school leaders, and now we shall be, of course, extending the reach to educational administrators on leadership development, on school leadership development. So taking this forward is again a massive challenge, and we need collaborative partners with our school leadership academies, and to reach out to the earlier estimate of school principals in the country. It's again, one has to think in a very large scale, and it is an important scalable challenge. So keeping that challenge in mind and keeping the scale in mind, it is important for the leadership academies to plan for the future. And a perspective plan is a plan which has been designed for the next 5 years, including the current financial year till 2026, 2027, to really consolidate all the efforts of school leadership development under one umbrella. And this is, of course, going to be the roadmap on which the leadership development programmatic activities would be continuing for the next 5 years in a well thought out vision statement. So we need to plan now for the future, since the leadership academies have been established since 2016, and now we have 29 of them, right. Which is again a huge number, and very well received sort of a program that we are having. And of course, you know, the states and UTs have to collaboratively work with the center to design this program and to take it forward to each school and each child. So, which is why we think that, you know, this perspective planning would be a very fruitful exercise for each of the SLAs. This will help you define the vision of the School Leadership Academy. This will help you define the roadmap, where you want to move ahead, and of course identify areas of intervention where the leadership program can be implemented successfully and with tangible outcomes. So we will also be talking about the impact.
Okay.
And how do we assess the impact of the program. So that would be towards the later stage of the session. So this is the reason why we think this planning exercise is very, very critical for the SLAs.
Okay.
Right.
So now that we have understand, and you yourself said that it is going to be a very fruitful exercise for all the state leadership academies. So let me ask you that, ma'am, what are the frameworks that you know, we need to think through regarding the school leadership development here?
Yes. So the SLA is, of course, not a one-person organization or an institution. It has many people involved. And the Leadership Academy has also been drawing people from the state resource group members who have been trained by the NCSL over the last 10 years now. And the state resource group members is a very huge critical mass of experts and functionaries from within the system who have leveraged the knowledge that is existing across. And they have been a great support to the leadership academies in all the endeavors, in all the academic endeavors, as well as in the implementation processes. So how does the SLA need to think now? So there are 3 frameworks that we are placing forward.
Okay.
Let's look at the slides. So first, the School Leadership Academy needs to plan for itself. That's number 1. So if they want to move ahead in this program, the first point would be to build their own institutional capacity as an SLA, and to also build their own professional capacities as the SLA faculty. That would be very critical. But when we are building these capacities, the aim has to be very clear in terms of transforming the schools. The number 2 point here is building leadership capacities of school leaders, educational administrators, and academic bodies, again to transform the schools.
Okay.
And the third is networking and leveraging the knowledge and skills present within the system to improve student learning. So these are the 3 points with which the Leadership Academy needs to move ahead. So that's the number 1 framework, where they need to assess the system,
okay,
the functionaries in position across different cadres, the training needs and challenges of the functionaries again across cadres, and plan for their own institutional development as a leadership academy, and plan for their own professional development as faculty who are associated with the SLA. So, but this whole exercise has to be undertaken with the view, with the aim that this process has to transform the schools. So we will also be having a session in the future on professional development and what does professional development mean in the context of leadership, where we'll be putting this idea forward that professional development is not something that it's a very independent exercise. It is, but when it is done collaboratively, it has far-reaching impact. So what kind of professional development is required by the SLAs to be able to meet this challenge of transforming each and every school in their jurisdiction, as the 29 SLAs would now be moving ahead with. That would be the aim of them. So that's the first framework. So the SLA has to assess the system, plan for its own development, professional development, and plan for the professional development of the school leaders, educational administrators, and the academic cadre. The number two is, the number two framework is, on which the SLAs have to think very, very critically, is the school development planning, which has been a regular feature in the schools over the past many decades now. And school development planning at the institutional level, which is the school is the unit for change, the school level is very critical now. So the SLA also has to collaboratively think and brainstorm on what would be the strengths and what would be the gap areas where the schools are doing in terms of SDP. Or the school development planning.
Okay. So, like ma'am is explaining, and you can see the slide as well, this is the second framework which covers all these things. And this is on how school leadership academies need to guide planning for school development.
Right. Yeah. So, the school is now the unit for change.
Right.
This has happened through decades of transformation in the educational governance process. So, in the school development planning exercise is really very critical. When the school leader collaboratively sits with the community, stakeholders, teachers, parents, and students, to develop a vision for the school, how the vision would transform and come into a reality in the next 3 years or 5 years. And then what needs to be done in terms of implementation and planning, and how these processes need to be evaluated, and so on and so forth. So this SDP at the institutional level is very critical. The SLAs need to now really rethink, develop creative ideas on how this SDP can become successful at the school level. So building the institutional capacity of schools, building the leadership capacities of schools is the second framework that the SLA needs to look at. And the third framework is, of course, networking with stakeholders. So we always think when we are talking about stakeholders in the context of the school, the parents in the community and teachers, or the neighborhood schools. But here the SLA needs to think how the SLA itself, the institution at the state or the UT level, can network across states, across other states, and across the districts, and across the stakeholder community that is already present. So networking has to take place at both the institutional level at the state or the UT, as well as at the school level. So how does the SLA work in tandem with the educational functionaries, with the school leaders? How does the School Leadership Academy ensure the proper functioning of the school-based management structures? We have the school management committees in the schools and so on. And how can the SLA also encourage professional learning communities of school leaders, teacher leaders, and educational officials? Because these PLCs or the professional learning communities are ever revitalizing, regenerating their ideas, sharing best practices, creating new knowledge, and finding out creative and innovative practices and ways to problem solve certain situations. So these are the three frameworks that the SLA needs to work upon. First, its own institutional capacity that needs to be built, its own professional development of its own faculty. Number two, creating institutional capacity at the school level. That is the leadership capacities of schools to lead and transform themselves. And the third is, of course, networking with stakeholders. So keeping these three, let's say, parameters in mind, the SLA can do this perspective planning. And the SLAs are well aware of the guidelines that have been shared with them this year, which has a very detailed format for perspective planning. And right at the beginning of our start, when we are going to discuss this in detail, let us put this point forward that this is a very exhaustive format, but the idea should not be to collect too much of information. Okay. The idea is to collect information that is relevant, and the focus must be more on how will they use this information for the planning of the school leadership development program, not really just collecting the information. So the meaning that they make out of this information, the inferences that they draw out of this information will be much more critical than just collecting the information. So this format that has been provided to you as part of the guidelines is very exhaustive, but it is only a suggested framework. You can, of course, make it flexible and collect information that is relevant. And more than collecting information, the focus must be on collaborative brainstorming on how to use this information for bettering the school leadership development program, and for bettering our processes whereby we can reach to every school and every child. That must be the more important focus rather than just collecting the information, right?
Okay, so these are the three frameworks that you just discussed. And ma'am, are there any stages you would like to discuss here, the various stages of developing this perspective plan in the context of school leadership, of course?
Yes. So if you look at the slide here, and this is there in the guidelines as well. So the first would be to carry out a situational analysis and need assessment of the education system in your state and UT. That would be the stage one. Okay. The stage two would be developing a vision after a proper diagnosis and need assessment. So what would be the vision for the next 5 years? That is something that the SLE needs to collaboratively develop. Then the third stage would be planning and implementation. So planning and implementation here would really be along the same lines as what NCSL does at the center. And we have put this together, even though in many of the planning literature, these two stages are separate, because we feel that planning and implementation must go simultaneously. Okay. Then this would, of course, lead to a lot of changes in the system, and even the minutest changes, or even the most like insignificant changes, are very important in the context of leadership. So how would the SLA create framework or create processes that will document these changes, and how these changes are going to get documented? And then, of course, assessment at the school level, because now in the last 3 to 4 years, the leadership academies, they know where they are going and what they are supposed to do as part of owning the leadership program in the context of their state and UT. But are we really having the expected impact that we had thought of in the beginning? And so now the idea is also to regularly assess the outcomes, the changes, and what outcomes are they leading to. And of course, the entire discourse is talking about improving student learning, improving the student well-being, or improving knowledge, skills, and attitudes of students. So is that happening as a result of school leadership development program? So we need to also assess the program to see what is the impact that it is creating at the last level, or for each child in the system, or for each school in the system. So that will become very important for the perspective planning. Okay. Right.
Okay, so these are the stages that ma'am described, all of them. And ma'am, we can look at each of these stages in detail. So I would request you to kindly
Yes.
explain these in terms of what is expected from the school leadership academies.
Right. So when we look at this, this was a graphical representation, a cyclical process. But if we flatten it out and we see it in terms of stages, we can go with it.
Right.
And we would request whenever the school leadership academies are watching this session, if not today, maybe later, they must sit with the guidelines and the format so that they understand where we are while we are discussing this in detail, stage by stage. So we look at the slide here. So the stage 1 is the situational analysis of school education system in the state and or the UT. We have to do two types of assessment, two types of diagnosis, and diagnosis is really at the heart of the educational planning exercise. So the first one is assessing the number of school-based functionaries and educational administrators and the academic faculty in your state and UT. So that would be more like a number analysis, a numerical analysis. And this is again, this whole perspective planning is a dynamic exercise. So we might fill up certain areas of the format this year. But what is to come after 2 years or 3 years? So we will have to wait for the years to come and unfold, and then we would see what would be the numbers. So for instance, if there are around 45,000 school principals in position in the government school system in your state or UT, so we are not only talking about the current school leaders or school principals, we are also talking about the prospective school leaders, so how many more school heads in position would be coming in the years to come. So that level of analysis and that level of projection is important for the years that would follow. So here we have given certain questions to probe, such as how many schools are there in the state or the UT, level-wise. And now after the introduction of Nipun Bharat and FLN, we would be also opening the preschool units. The states or the UTs would be opening preschool units. So how many schools are there level-wise? Elementary, secondary or composite schools. Does the state or the UT have a designated position of the school head for different levels of schools? So for instance, there are many states where the senior most teacher becomes the head teacher at the elementary school level. But there are also states where one has a designated position for the headmaster or the school head, even at the elementary level. And most of the states and UTs have designated positions at the secondary or senior secondary level. How many school heads are there in position and how many posts are vacant against designated and non-designated levels? Then how many prospective school leaders are expected to come or to get inducted into the system? Because we also have induction programs as part of our school leadership development, capacity building or continuous professional development opportunities. We have the induction program. So this level of numerical analysis is something that would be required by the SLA. Then of course at the district and the sub-district level, what is the number and scale of district education officers or ADOs, or DPOs, DPIs. They are known by different names across states and UTs. So that would be one. And how many block education officers or BDOs are there or BEOs are there? So a sort of an analysis, a situational analysis of how many functionaries are in position and how many are vacant, how many are expected to join in the years to come. And similarly, the same thing goes for the academic structure in the states and UTs, in terms of how many diets are there, district institutes of education training. Do the diets have faculty? How many faculty are there? Do they have principals appointed as the principals of diet? So, so on and so forth. So across all the cadres in the education system, a situational analysis is required in the numerical sense in terms of what is there in position and what is expected to join or come in the years to come. And the same thing can go for your SCRT or CMAT or the SLA, which are located in these institutions. And they're also known by different names. The leadership academies are known because they're established in different institutions in different states and UTs. So for example, we have SCRT in many states, but we have MIPA in Maharashtra, that is Maharashtra Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, or we have CISLEP in Karnataka, or we have the DIET in Ladakh, which is the Leadership Academy. So in terms of the situational analysis of your own Leadership Academy, how many faculty are there? How many, what are their the numbers, and what numbers would they increase in the coming years? So having a numerical situational analysis of the system, that is one. And B, if you go to the slide, the B is, of course, so one is the numerical analysis and the other is the situational analysis in terms of identifying the specific context of the state or the UT and assessing the professional needs of the educational functionaries. So there are two areas here in point number B in the format. The first is the context of the state UT. So what are the geographical or topographical conditions, the socio-economic or cultural uniqueness in your state UT? Are there some specific tribes or cultures there? Does your state have a high migratory population from across the states and UTs? What are the specific practices? Any other significant, unique diversity or unique context of your state UT? So you need to have that analysis as well as part of the diagnosis. And the second is, of course, need analysis. So in always when we are in traditional formats for training, when training programs are developed, now we do not use the word training that much in the leadership context. It is capacity building. And now it is continuous professional development after the coming of NEP 2020. So what are the professional needs and challenges of the educational functionaries, which includes the school leaders, which includes the educational administrators and the academic cadre. So a proper need analysis is required for each of the cadres. And would you organize workshops to understand their needs and challenges, the professional challenges that they are facing? And so what are the thematic areas that are emerging from this sort of a detailed analysis? Situational analysis or diagnosis has to happen both numerically as well as the professional requirements in executing their roles and responsibilities. What are their professional needs and challenges according to the cadre? So this is what comes under stage one, or the situational analysis or need assessment of the education system of your state and UT. So once that format is kind of sketched out, and this has to be a collaborative exercise. As many people as possible, one must engage in this exercise. Okay. Otherwise, in leadership, one of the critical factors is ownership. And if people are left out, they would not own up the planning process at a later stage. So it's always very important to include as many functionaries or as many faculty and resource persons as possible right from the very beginning of the planning stage, so that the ownership is maintained all throughout. So once the situation analysis has been completed and everybody is on the same page for the diagnostic exercise, we go to the second stage now. The second stage is developing a vision for the school leadership development. So where we are today and where we need to reach in the next 3 years and in the next 5 years. So in the format, we have separated this out from 2022 to 2025 and then from 2024 to 2027 if they want to modify the vision statement. That again is a collaborative exercise which needs to be done. So in vision, developing a vision, also the stakeholders need to be involved, right?
Right.
And this vision development has to take place based on the situational analysis.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So situational analysis will tell you where we are today, and then how do we foresee ourselves in the next 3 years or 5 years.
Okay. All right. So like ma'am said that there are multiple stages, and on your screens you can see that stage 2 and stage 3 we are about to discuss, and stage 1 ma'am has already discussed in detail. So there are total 5 stages.
5 stages, yes.
Yes. So let's continue with stage
Let's continue,
number 2.
yeah. So, so that is really about the vision statement. The leadership academies need to develop a proper statement, which is based on value leadership, which is based on a futuristic perspective, and where they want to see themselves in the next 3 years and 5 years, and where they want to see this leadership program panning out in the next 3 to 5 years, and how do they see each of the functionaries getting benefited from this leadership program.
Okay.
So we go ahead now on the slide itself. The stage 3 is mapping the specific contexts, themes, and need assessment.
Right.
So this is actually building up on the stage 1 and stage 2. So here in the format, we see, for instance, when we did this professional analysis in stage 1 as part of the diagnostic exercise, we found out that school leaders would require more capacity building in terms of executing their administrative roles and responsibilities. Or they need more capacity building in the field of innovations. They're scared of innovating. So how to build that confidence and build that motivation in the school leaders, to innovate, to do risk taking within the normative framework. So you must have definitely come out or identified certain themes, certain needs and challenges in the stage 1 for each of the cadres. So the idea in the format is to list them down, the themes. So that would be the listing and mapping out of all the themes across the cadres in terms of their professional needs and requirements. Or for instance, many of the school leaders would say, that we are not able to manage the time. So time task management is again one of the most important skills, so maybe that comes out as a need area. True. And our experience, NCSL's experience has been such that in many workshops that we have held or programs that we have held, it's quite possible that there are certain areas, where team building is lacking. Okay. But in other areas, team development has already been a common feature in schools and in the systems. So it also depends on different stages of development in the states and UTs. So the needs and challenges would also emerge from the context of the state or the UT and the work culture, So whatever themes have been identified in stage 3, you need to map that out across cadres. For school leaders, teacher leaders, we have added here, educational administrators, then needs for diets and academic resource persons at the district and sub-district level. So that mapping can also take place here in stage 3. So for instance, in the analysis for the faculty in diets, a lot of diet faculty would feel that we are here more for pre-service training of teachers, but they have not really explored the fact that they can actually go out into the field and transform the schools. So how do you do supervision of schools in the field? Maybe that's a gap area. So all these gap areas, challenges and professional requirements of the cadres need to be mapped out in stage 3. Okay. So that would be stage 3. Then we come to stage 4.
Stage 4, I think, is the documentation?
The planning and implementation.
Okay.
So the first, of course, the first, second and third stage are basically diagnosis as well as mapping out the different contexts. But stage 4 is now really getting into the planning part or the implementation part, right? So here, when we look at this, in planning and implementation, now this is really the core function of the School Leadership Academy. Here, the first is content and material development. The second is the CPD, the continuous professional development opportunities. The third is networking and institutional building. The fourth is research and development. And the 5 is advocacy on school leadership development and inclusion in the state policy or the policy for school leadership in the UTs. So here, the more important thing here we need to understand is that the National Center for School Leadership has developed this curriculum framework, the National Program Design and the Curriculum Framework. And it has consistently put in efforts to create capacity building programs for the school leaders. So we have the National Curriculum Framework, and we also discussed that there is a taxonomy on school leadership development that is already uploaded on the Diksha platform. And we have also uploaded that on the NCSL website. So I'll just take 1 minute to show the NCSL website here. So here, if you look at the publications, here we will be uploading the taxonomy, and we have also uploaded here on the School Leadership Academy icon. This is the taxonomy on school leadership development, which is of course not readable here, but it will be readable on the screen that they would be clicking on. And this really is the all comprehensive understanding on the key areas, the 7 key areas of the curriculum framework. Here what we have done is that this is an upgraded version of the curriculum framework, in the sense that this is not the curriculum framework, but this is an upgraded version of the, let us say, the entire repertoire or repository of areas and themes that exist in the curriculum framework of 2015. But in addition to that, we have also added some new themes that, that have emerged in the last 6 years after the launch of the curriculum framework in 2015. So this taxonomy is all comprehensive, has all the areas and thematic units that have been that have emerged in the last 5 years. So for instance, pedagogical leadership, it was not there earlier and we have added it here. Or for instance, a clear-cut focus on learning outcomes. So that has been added in the taxonomy. So basically the taxonomy will serve as the overarching framework at the national level on school leadership development, and whatever planning the Leadership Academy has to do now under the stage 4 has to really follow this framework as the guiding roadmap on material development. This and the curriculum framework, of course. For instance, we have added some skills, like leadership skills in the area of developing self in the taxonomy. So when you look here, like communication skills or interpersonal skills, stress management, so on and so forth. Or in fact, in leading partnerships, we have added the idea of social audit or the idea of accountability. And we have added the idea of systems thinking in leading school administration. So there are many themes that have got added in the last 5 years, and we have populated the taxonomy based on these emerging new themes. So basically, for all the content and material development that has to be carried forward by the SLA, just have a reference to the taxonomy first. Before really designing and planning for material development. So the Leadership Academies are very well aware of the fact that the curriculum framework has been developed by the center, and the handbook, the 16-day handbook is there on leadership development. The 1-month certificate course on school leadership and management is there. We have the handbook on pedagogical leadership now. We have the online program on school leadership management, the basic level and the intermediate would soon be launched. We also have developed a self-instructional package for school leadership consisting of 14 modules. So a large landscape of materials already exist at the national level, which will definitely be the guiding framework for any planning exercise at the state or the UT level under school leadership development. But the Leadership Academies also need to develop materials and modules that will supplement these programs. So these handbooks, resource books, and the online program they pan out the 7 key areas identified in the curriculum framework. But case studies or certain hypothetical exercises or simulation exercises that are very context specific to the state and the UT needs to be developed by the leadership academies, because the framework is the overarching framework, but it needs to be supplemented with the state UT materials.
Right.
And another thing that needs to be kept in mind here is that when they are developing materials, they have to be of multiple formats. So we are no longer looking for traditional modules which are very text heavy. And in fact, leadership academies have developed a fantastic set of material across the states and UTs, which are interactive. They have interactive media inbuilt into the modules.
Okay.
They can be used in different formats, either through as self-instructional material or adapted to the online platform. And we would encourage the leadership academies to also try out new innovative methods of content creation, such as if they can try out gaming, or they can try out the development of a new app.
Okay.
Or they can develop some caselets, some case studies which are school-based. In fact, the SLAs have also developed digital booklets for capturing the leadership best practices across schools. So a lot of material that will get generated by the leadership academies in the years to come, and they've already done in the last 3 to 4 years, it has to actually supplement the original frameworks that are existing at the national level. That needs to be kept in mind.
Okay.
So for instance, if you want to create a digital content on, let us say, communication skills, or a short animation film or a short film or a documentary. So you can always go back and refer to the taxonomy and see where the communication skills would fall. It will fall under the developing self key area, and create that animation clip or a short film or something, or a nice creative exercise that can be used in the capacity building programs. So content and material generation has to happen at the SLA level, which is based on the diverse context of the leadership academy and of the state and the UT. So let me just quickly take 1 minute and share that many of our leadership academies have created some amazing modules and materials in their Indian languages. So we have always encouraged, apart from English and Hindi, please create materials in your
regional languages.
Yes, and they are actually Indian languages, like Kannada, Telugu, or Marathi, and other languages.
Right.
So that has happened, right? And this is all uploaded on the NCSL website. We are encouraged that continue to create such innovative and creative materials that can actually fit into the taxonomy as well, and support in the capacity building programs. So that is one. Then we go next to the slide. In terms of continuous professional development opportunities. Now here the CPD is a term now which is being widely used post the National Education Policy 2020, and it is existing in para number 5.16, where the leaders and school leaders and teacher leaders are mandated to avail of CPD opportunities for about 50 hours. For school leaders, it is 50 hours or more of CPD that they're expected to do. So CPD opportunities are, of course, not just, CPD is not equal to training. Okay. So this is one thing that everyone needs to be on the same page. Continuous professional development opportunities are lifelong opportunities for professional development. This must not be equal to training or capacity building. So CPD would include self-reading, self-instructional material. CPD would also be a professional dialogue with a colleague. It would also be participation in webinars or seminars. It would be participation in professional learning communities. It would be an exposure visit to a neighborhood school which is doing very well. That is also part of CPD. You know? And of course training component or the capacity building component. And it is quite possible that capacity building is not available right at the moment, you know. There is no organization which is organizing it. So how can you do capacity building within the school premises, with the school stakeholders? So that will also come under CPD. So CPD is a very comprehensive term that has been used for capturing each and every single opportunity that contributes to the professional development of a school leader or a teacher leader or an educational functionary. It is not just equal to training. Okay. So training component is one part of CPD. So this conceptual clarity is required on the part of SLAs when they're going to create opportunities along with, in consultation with NCSL. So that would be the CPD. So here the school leadership academies have also developed some amazing content on the official SLA YouTube channels. Apart from capacity building programs, please continue to do webinars that are very fruitful.
Right.
And for the larger audience of the educational functionaries, live streamings the way we do here, when we invite school principals, and many SLAs have actually started a live streaming in their own studio, and we must refer to Jammu and Kashmir SLA. The SCRT SLA in JNK has done a fabulous job in creating content on live streaming as well as on different formats. That also is part of CPD. So that is one. Then special lectures by Kerala, for instance, you know, they have done that on SLA YouTube. In fact, Telangana has done that, has a fabulous content on the SLA official YouTube channel. Okay. So basically, all SLAs have taken upon different platforms and YouTube channels to create opportunities for CPD. Right. So this conceptual clarity is very much required. Okay. Then the third part is networking and institutional building. If you look at the slide here. Right. So networking with national level organizations like NCSL, NCRT, and different central education organizations like KVS, CBSE, NVS, that is highly encouraged. SLAs must get into learnings, mutual learnings with these organizations. Right. And they must also network amongst each other. So here I would like to just point out that NCSL is also developing a dedicated portal for the School Leadership Academy. So we have a new website coming up, which is dedicated for all the SLAs. And so that, you know, their entire materials and outputs can be showcased on one platform, and it would really lead to a lot of cross sharing of best practices across. How do you network with other SLAs? That is one question that you need to probe in the planning exercise. Networking with schools and districts, of course. Creation of a database of SRGs and school heads. You know, so we all know that for many years, a robust group of state resource persons has been created as per the formats and capacity building programs conducted by NCSL over the last 10 to 12 years. Creating a dynamic database, that is important, and of course for the school leaders also, so that, you know, we can always draw the lessons and draw the knowledge from within the system. So that is very critical here. And here maybe I might digress from the point, but I would like to say here that it's very important to leverage the knowledge that is already existing in the system rather than really looking for organizations outside. Okay. Maybe, you know, there is so much of knowledge that is already there, and a lot of practices that are already there existing. So why not we take advantage of that? Right. So that is possible only when you have a strong networking with every state resource group and every school leader in the state. Then the last point here is research and development. Here, NCSL has been committed to create capacity building programs and continuous professional development opportunities for school leaders and for educational administrators based on a sound base of research and analysis. So research and development really takes an important role in the NCSL's activities. So here in the format for the planning exercise, the idea is to research what are the leadership challenges in the diverse context of states and UTs. In NCSL, the NCSL faculty has been doing research in schools, small schools in Himachal Pradesh, in Uttarakhand, or Chaur areas of Assam, or schools in urban disadvantaged schools who are hosting urban disadvantaged students in Surat in Gujarat, and or in rural disadvantaged areas in the northern Indian belt. So we have identified diverse contexts where schools operate in different formats, and what are their leadership requirements, and how do leaders lead in tough, difficult circumstances. So that has really been the mainstay in leadership research now at the present moment. So the leadership academies need to really plan out how they will conduct researches in the years to come that is also going to benefit the principals and leaders who are operating in different and diverse contexts. So that research and development part, they have to do this. And the last part here in the format, let me just wind this format up, okay, is the point is about documentation. So what we are saying here is that once you are planning, and if in the stage 4, we are planning what type of materials we want, what thematic areas we want, because that is based on situational analysis or diagnosis. What kind of continuous professional development opportunities are required for different cadres, networking and research. So this all has to be interlinked. So it's quite possible that a leadership academy would come up with a new program, but it has no relevance to the field, or it has no relevance to the practitioner-centric needs of the school leaders or educational administrators. So it has to be carefully planned. What are the areas and thematic interventions that you need for creating new content or material? Or what areas of school education actually require research? Do we need to research skill-based areas for planning, student learning or student competencies? So what are those areas that I need to research as a leadership academy? What are those areas where I need to create content and material to support the NCSL in successfully rolling out the implementation of various CPD activities? Or how do I need to network with the leadership academies, other leadership academies or other institutions to bridge the gap that is there in the professional needs of my cadre in the state or the UT. So very carefully it needs to be planned and interlinked, these 4 activities. And the last one is, of course, advocacy on the school leadership development and inclusion in policy. So maybe a time comes when the leadership, the success of the leadership development program, where you're able to reach to every school, that has created a lot of consensus, and the Leadership Academy is also able to emerge as a significant influencer in the policy landscape of the state and the UT. So that one needs to now think about when you are doing perspective planning. Okay. And most important here is the next stage here, stage 5, which is the last stage, in terms of documentation of processes and impact assessment at the ground level.
Sure.
So as we rightly said that in the beginning, how do we really assess the impact? And again, assessing the impact is not something that happens after 6 months or 10 months or 1 year or 2 years. Again, it's a simultaneous process, So there is a capacity building workshop. School leaders have come, they feel equipped with new knowledge and skills and attitudes. Now, when they go back to the school, what are their implementation? How are they implementing the school development plan, or how are they implementing small change projects? And what are the impact or the outcomes of these change projects? They need to be documented.
Okay.
So here again, we would say that the leadership academies need to really think deeply about this area, because this is again a gap area. So how would you assess what changes have come about in the leadership practices of the school leader after they have undergone the capacity building workshops, or after they have availed of the CPD opportunities? So it must not be just for self-learning. It must be practiced on the ground. That is very critical. So for instance, I learned how to innovate, what are the dynamics of innovations in schooling processes. Now the real success of that capacity building program or the training program actually depends on whether you're able to innovate in the school and you're able to bring about all these stakeholders together and innovate and make these innovations sustainable. Right. To bring about significant changes and transformation in the school. So if you look here in the slide, what changes have come about in the leadership practices of the school leader? What changes have come about in the processes of the school? How have the teacher and student competencies improved over the last year or over the past few months? So the leadership academies need to bring the assessment part into the planning process, into the perspective plan as a very, very critical component. Because without this, the entire exercise is non-productive. Right. The entire school leadership development program, the success of it lies in the student and teacher competencies. The student learning takes place, the competencies are built. That is what the success is of the leadership program. Okay. So with this perspective, if the leadership academies would move ahead, taking along all these stakeholders, they would be able to successfully plan for the next 5 years and implement as well as create real impact on the ground.
Absolutely.
Right.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for being here for telling all the school leadership academies that how to plan for school leadership development. And this has been a wonderful program. I'm sure they are going to refer to the website that you have just told. And also you said that a new website is going to be launched very, very soon. So that is also going to be very helpful for all the SLAs. Right. So thank you, ma'am, for this entire program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the states, to all the UTs, the principals who are watching this program, because this is not just a normal program. This is for all the school leadership academies, and this is going to be very beneficial when you are planning. This is the perspective plan. Right. So this is going to be very useful. Please refer to the program. If in case you've not watched it live today, then you can watch it again on NCRT Official. It's going to be there. It's going to be uploaded there forever. So you can watch it for reference later as well. The title was Perspective Planning for School Leadership Development by School Leadership Academies. Thank you so much for watching this program. I really think that you also think that it is useful for all of you. And for all the questions, queries, you can always send us on our YouTube channel. Again, that is NCRT Official. Thank you for watching it. Please take great care of yourself. We are wrapping up this particular program here, and we are wrapping up all the programs for today. We'll come back on Monday again with our more sessions, and this program was in English, but this program entirely will be broadcasted in Hindi again very, very soon. You'll get the information for that, and yes, we'll come back again in the Hindi version. So please wait for it and keep your questions ready. Thank you once again. Namaskar.